Podcast number 20, STARMER'S New Year's Devolution. We'll get into what that means a little bit later in the podcast. There's absolutely loads going on. Salmon, 2023. New year, new
Happy
me.
New Year.
Happy New Year. We should probably crack a beer. We've already cracked it.
Yeah, we've already opened it.
We've got a
cheers.
Strongbow dark fruit cider. Cheers. Ooh. The podcast goes out once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We've been pretty good at it lately as well. Literally every 2 weeks.
We are
for the
getting
last
good.
5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Pretty happy with that. And then also, I should say that we are live on Twitch. So go follow us at twitch.tv/electric_honk. I'm MachineDaena. What am I? Commercial manager, streamer,
Clown.
general clown, yeah.
I'm Andrew Salmon, Coronation Street Extra.
Your eyes are watering, mate. He's already losing it. We've only just started the podcast. In this podcast, we've got a lot coming up, Salmon. Do you want to give a bit of an overview?
We'll talk a little bit about what we've been up to, which for me, I was on my own for a week between Christmas and New Year. So my recap is a lot about what I was reading on the internet. So
Okay.
Regular top shelf. So you brought some nice alcohol in. I've not seen what it is, but we've got some nice crystal champagne glasses. So there's a suggestion of what it could be there. I think it's going to be interesting is our tips for 2023, how to live a good life in all of these aspects: health, money, relationships, happiness, and any New Year's resolutions that we plan to try and stick to.
Yeah, of course. We'll cover some of that. We've also got Greta and Tate drama that's been going on Twitter.
Yeah.
We've also got Goose News today for a change.
For a change, yeah. It's amazing that there's so much Goose News out there. It never fails to deliver.
I've got Headliner this week, which is obviously a crowd favourite. We've got some other bits and bobs of news, so a little bit of politics. Sunak has announced about studying maths till you're 18 or something.
Yeah.
NHS wait times. Starmer taking back something or other.
Taking back control.
And then over to you. We got pork scratchings.
Oh yeah, so we'll do a little bit of the Salmon of Knowledge. So if you've heard of it, because there's a giant salmon on the banks of the river going through Belfast.
And then a bit of football. I've got a key question I want to ask you, Salmon. Very important question. So stay tuned for
keys.
what that is. It's not about keys,
Okay.
but it is about the human body.
Ooh.
Guess
Okay.
which part. Evie has been weaning this week, so we've been trying to try her out with different bits of food. I think I might have briefly mentioned this in the podcast last week.
Yeah.
She literally just pukes up every single time.
Really? Oh,
And
right.
the most recent one, we gave her some broccoli and Gemma always put some booby milk in it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. It mashes it all up. And we gave her it. She's managed to actually put some in her mouth, but
Nice.
she just leaves it there. She doesn't chew it. She doesn't try and swallow it. So she just starts trying to talk. And after about 5 minutes of this, I've managed to put another spoonful in, hopefully that she'd like swallow it down.
Yeah.
And she just sat back and went... It went fucking everywhere. Me and Gemma soaked with mash and booby milk
Nice.
and broccoli. It was funny as fuck. But we are trying to be a little bit more healthy at the moment. I'm trying to be a bit less of a fat bastard.
So you're eating broccoli and booby milk as well,
I
are you?
am, yeah. Exactly that, yeah. People pay for booby milk.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get Gemma onto OnlyFans so she can get it, sell it. But she's not so keen at the moment. But on the fitness front, I was wanted to just mention, you get to like our age. I'm nearly 37. I think you're 36, aren't you, at the moment? You get to our age, you're at a pivot point, aren't you? It's sort of like you either go down that hill where you just continue to slowly decline.
Especially as a father.
Yeah.
A parent. Like, it's not called a dad bod for a reason, is it? I've tried to keep on top with fitness. Obviously, last year I did London to Paris bike ride, which gave me a real motivation to be on the bike a lot. Then that ended, and I just
Couldn't be arsed.
did nothing after that. And I finally signed up to a gym, and then it got really cold over December and stopped exercising myself. So I agree. I'm at that kind of like pivot point of like, I think I need a goal.
Yeah, goals do help. Well, my goal is we're going to Lanzarote in April. And this is no like exaggeration, not even memes for the podcast.
Yeah.
I just want to completely transform my body by the time 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And I'm talking like I want people's boyfriends to be jealous. I want my old classmates from 25 years ago to look on Facebook and go, God, he's doing well for himself in terms of how I look. I mean, let's forget the rest of the stuff.
His podcast is going well and he looks great.
You'll be able to do your ironing on my pecs.
Nice. Okay, I'll test that out. Well, that's good. I mean, and the fact that you've made it open and that you've made it clear to our millions of listeners that you're going to do that. That
pressure is
extra
now
pressure on. Yeah.
I will also do a little bit of a t-shirt reveal.
Oh, go on then.
Now.
Yeah.
This has got no relevance whatsoever, but
you're just happy to wear it.
Just a nice t-shirt for the pod.
Vegetarian. Oh my God.
So I got a blue t-shirt on for the viewers here. Vegetarian. No real story behind this. I was just browsing for funny t-shirts and I saw it and it made me laugh. So I bought it.
Are you going to wear that out in public?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course you will. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, in terms of what I've been up to, like I said, I was on my own for about a week after Christmas up until New Year's Day. So I spent a lot of time just reading a load of crap on the internet, going down wormholes and things. So I thought I'd relay some of the more interesting things. First of all, Finland, if you get caught speeding, it's not just a set fine like we have in this country. What they do is they look at your yearly income
per miles per hour. Or something
no,
like
they look at your yearly income, and the more you earn on a year, the higher your speeding ticket charge. Wow. So the minimum
Means tested.
Yeah,
fines.
So the minimum is €6. Maximum can be like tens of thousands of euros. I think it's euros they spend there. Yeah, it's like so if you're like a millionaire and you get caught speeding, you don't just pay 50 quid and get away with it. Like it actually means something. I mean, aren't these Scandinavian countries just the most progressive and like incredible countries to live in? Like that's a policy that everyone can get on board with.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't really complain about that because if some knobhead who's rich is speeding, you would want them to pay something that is meaningful to them, not like 100 quid. Always makes me laugh when like the footballers get fined like $5,000 for turning up late for training. Yeah. It's like, well,
and in the place where I work, there's a lot of rich people and they've all driving around their expensive cars and they literally just park on double yellow lines all the time because it's worth them just parking outside a restaurant for 70 quid or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Also, another thing I kind of found myself watching was people talking about their dreams, specifically what they call lucid dreams, which is kind of like you're dreaming, but you feel like you're awake and involved in it and you can manipulate kind of what happens in your dream and make decisions and things. And people say one thing you should never do in the middle of a lucid dream is ask a person what's today's date and time. And people have been like, okay, now I want to try this. So people have been doing it and feeding back on TikTok and Twitter and whatever what their reactions were. And in every instance, whether people are just making this up and jumping on the train or not, I don't know. But in every instance, when somebody's asked in their dream, what's today's date and time, they get this like really spooky, vague warning, like you should not be asking those sort of questions. You need to get out of it. From the person in the dream, yeah.
What
the response saying like you cannot be asking those sort of questions. You need to get out of here as soon as possible. And then it kind of vanishes. And everyone's feeding back almost identical experiences of this. So I'm kind of tempted if I ever, it's been a while since I've had a dream like that where I feel I can make decisions whilst I'm in the dream. But if I do get that, I think I might give it a go. But it might freak me out a bit. But another thing I found out about was there's this place in Cumbria called Torpenhow Hill. Have you ever heard of it?
I can't say I have.
Okay, it's near Cockermouth.
That is a real place, isn't it?
It is a real place.
And I have actually been there. There is a place called Cockermouth. we need to go on a road trip and go to all these stupid places. We actually do, because... Is there a place called Cunt as well?
I think there is, but just near Cockermouth, there is another hill called Great Cockup, and the village, the village just near it, just is genuine, you can check it, it's called Cockup Bottom.
Have you been there?
No, I've never been there, no. But it's near Torpenhow Hill, which is how I found.
So you're saying you've not experienced Cockup Bottom?
Not yet, no. But I'm willing to go there with you. Right, Torpenhow Hill. So this, I just want to tell you how it got its name and what it means. So when the Saxons arrived in the UK, they used this hill as a landmark, and they asked the local, like, "What's this hill called?" And the person who replied was Welsh and said, "Pen." Like Welsh for hill is pen. So he was like, "That's pen." So the Saxons called it Pen. In fact, Saxon for hill is Tor. So then they called it Torpen because they thought Pen was the name of it. So it became Torpen. Then the Norse Vikings came along further down the line, the Vikings, and they asked, what's the word for a hill?
On the board, it's HillHillHill.
Yeah. So then they went through the same process and they added their word for hill. So they thought it was called Torpen. So they called it Torpenhow. which is how being the Norse word for hill. So they called it Torpenhow, and
we now call it a hill.
Decades later, the English then called it Torpenhow Hill. So what it's actually called in, when you break it down, is HillHillHill.
That's quality. That should be a pork scratching.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
It's that time where we basically try and introduce you at the weekend. So we're honking you into the weekend, by the way. That's the whole point of this podcast.
Yep.
We don't say that often enough.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. The point is we're trying to give you some ammunition. Sometimes that's the pork scratchings and stuff. We're trying to give you different bits of information there, weird and wonderful stories. Sometimes it's just about broadening your palate, your alcoholic palate.
It is.
This week, I'll go and get it.
And actually, I haven't ruled out the possibility of us doing alcohol-free because with it being dry January for a lot of people might actually want to know what's out there.
Yeah. I'd love to say, well, funny you say that.
Yeah. This one's 60% absinthe.
Yeah. What I have done, though, got this as a gift. We've now got a
beautiful.
lovely wooden box with a nice rope handle on it. Those regular listeners will know that and watchers will that it
the
was
brown
just a
paper bag.
rubbish old paper bag that had really started to get quite worn out. We'll keep it as a relic, but we won't use it anymore. And it's obviously got the top shelf.
Things have stepped up a notch then. I like it.
For those of you, we can actually get it on camera now as well, which makes it a little bit better. So it's got a little wooden latch on it, so we can just pull this latch up. And we've got here, we probably should get a jingle for
a bit like
HillHillHill.
Wine.
So this is, and I'll show you here, it's called Hambleton, and it's a classic cuvee from an English vineyard. So it's English quality sparkling wine. It's basically the English equivalent of champagne. Now, I didn't know this until about a year or two ago, but apparently English champagne's quite trendy, and it's an up-and-coming thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really know it. Obviously, champagne still rules the roost. Then you've obviously got Prosecco as well, a bit of a copycat.
Yeah.
So I'll just read you through this. So it looks like a traditional champagne bottle. It's got the cork. It's got the screw top, all that. Lovely sort of cream label with Hambleton on it.
Yeah.
And this is established in 1952. Hambleton Vineyard is England's oldest commercial vineyard. Hambleton is also the cradle of cricket. Our vineyards are planted on Upper Cretaceous I can't even read half of this. Belmite chalk. I don't know why that's relevant. Famous for sparkling wine production. Classic Cuvée is a blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Meunier. Pronounce that word.
Let me read the whole sentence. Classic Cuvée is a blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Meunier, I'll go for it. All right, that's fairly hard to read.
From our own vineyards, carefully blended by our experienced winemaking team to show the best expressions of our terroir from each harvest. That's just bullshit, basically.
Can you read a bit about cricket again? Because I noticed the logo on the front looks a bit crickety.
I think it looks a little bit Tennessee.
Oh, because you're reading like Wimbledon in it, but the actual logo on the top of the bottle it looks like it's got a cricket bat.
Oh, it does,
couple of cricket bats.
It's like
wickets.
Yeah, wickets. But it also looks like it's got the square from in the Masons.
It does look like that, doesn't it? Yeah, I thought that first.
Interesting.
Stonemasons.
So 10 out of 10 for decoration, 1 out of 10 for description. But let's give it a try.
1 out of 10 for description. Ineligible guff.
Right then, let's get this open. That wasn't
ready. Jeez, that was a loud pop.
That was loud. Right, I'm going to pour one. So there you go. This is English champagne. You can't technically call it champagne because for it to be champagne, it needs to be from a specific part of France.
Do you know what that part of France is called?
Paris.
It's called the Champagne region.
So here we go. Hambleton, English sparkling wine. Cheers.
Hambleton. Cheers.
Immediately feel like it doesn't taste as good as champagne.
I don't know. I feel like champagnes are very hit and miss. It is a little bit harsher than most champagnes, but it's all right. It's nice.
Well, there you go. So,
champagne's one of those drinks that I don't always really enjoy. I think you can get bad champagnes and good champagnes, even though everyone reveres the always real champagne.
Yeah, I don't really get the difference between spending like £10,000 on a bottle versus like 40 quid.
Yeah.
So I can just about stretch to like a 30 or 40 quid bottle. But after that, I'm like, nah,
what's the point?
You're taking the piss now.
tips for 2023. We're going to break it down, and we've not actually pre-planned any of these, so these are spur of the moment tips for our listeners out there, and I think they're going to be quite genuine and heartfelt, and we are like approaching our 40s, so we have got a reasonable bit of advice to give our listeners.
It could just devolve into absolute chaos and stupidity.
It could.
We have got health, money, relationships, and penis.
Happiness.
Which is short for happiness, isn't it? On the board.
Yeah.
So, tips for 2023. Salmon, what's your health tip for 2023?
My health tip would be find a sport that you enjoy, whether it's a single sport like that you do on your own, like cycling or something like that, even though you can do cycling teams, or whether it's a team sport like football, and commit to it. So if you're into football or cricket or rugby or whatever, tennis, go and join a club and have some like accountability of going to play it, rather than just saying, no, I like a bit of football actually, and then never actually getting into a routine of playing it. So I think if you want to stay healthy in terms of exercise, commit yourself to either a club or an environment where you're expected to turn up fairly regularly.
Right. Mine's a similar vein, really. Accountability. I think have a reason to do some exercise. For me, my reason is Evie, my newly born daughter. She's 6 months old now, but also wanting to look like an absolute Chad on holiday in Lanzarote in 4 months' time.
Fair enough.
And we'll get to 4 months' time, and I'm going to decide from there what the next goal will be. So what we're then looking forward to keep the healthiness in mind.
Yeah.
Relationship advice?
Before we move on, what are you going to be doing? What's your biggest health change to your life to get into that shape? Is it more exercise or better diet?
It's going to be both. Cutting out quite a lot of carbs. I'm going to be in a carb deficit. So measuring your carbs, definitely. We found to be really, really good to keep you motivated.
Have you got an app for that, like MyFitnessPal?
We do have, we use MyFitnessPal for that. We're not sponsored by them yet.
Yeah,
for sure. So relationship advice?
I think I'm focusing more on family here, family and friends, rather than like a partner. Make more of an effort, because even though you may only see your family, like for me, like Christmas, just going made me think, flipping it, I don't actually see a lot of my family, and they're a lot nicer than you think they are. You know, in your mind you think, well, they're a bit annoying, my family. You know, I won't bother dealing with them unless I have to. It is important to have close ties with your family. So if you are a bit like me and your family are a little bit distant and you don't see them on a day-to-day basis, I think have a think about it and actually see if you can make more of an effort and maybe don't.
When you say making more of an effort, frequency there or quality of time?
It's got to be both, hasn't it? I think even just checking in with phone calls, if you've got nothing to say, just say, how are you? And I think relationship will build steadily over time if you just keep in touch. But obviously the quality is great as well if you can go for a meal or something and really spend some time with someone.
My advice with relationships would be focus on the ones that are good, because a lot of people spread themselves a little bit thinly. Yeah. And I think it's better to find good friendships and work and consciously know who your good friends are and work on those friendships and give them your time, rather than the people. You don't necessarily have to fully cut out people that you're not so good friends with, but just be conscious of the amount of time you spend with the people that you think are better friends.
Yeah, I like that.
With money, I think any kind of passive income, if you can develop any kind of passive income, even if it's just £50, £100 extra a month.
Like what?
With me, I've got a passive income from YouTube and from some streaming and some advertising and stuff like that. Okay. That's the niche that I've chosen. And then long term, I want to have a property or two that's out for rent and get some passive income from that. Just allows you a potential freedom to either do more things that you want to do or build up more of a wealth.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like a second job where you're actually going out to work. It's more stuff that's going on in the background that you're getting paid for.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice, okay. I think for me, it would be with the cost of living and the fact that everyone's got a lot less money than they used to, even though their salaries may have crept up a tiny bit, but definitely not in line with inflation. People, no matter how rich you are, apart from the ultimate rich, are finding life harder to cope with, basically, money-wise. So I would say think carefully about online purchases and actually be aware that a lot of advertising is being like targeted at you to make you spend money that you don't really need to spend. And actually think carefully before you buy it. So many people impulsively buy things online.
So just to make this a bit more lighthearted, what's an impulsive thing that you've bought recently?
This hoodie that I'm wearing today. So like as a cyclist, this is a cycling brand hoodie and it was nice. Like there's a sale on and it is quite a nice hoodie.
For the listeners, can you describe your hoodie just so?
Bright red. The brand is Rafa, which is quite a upmarket cycling brand.
It looks nice.
They had like a 50% sale on, but only in the red colour, so I bought it and I just thought I like that.
I will say this. We were sat down at the dinner table. I was eating and Salmon came. We was doing some podcast planning. Evie sat there and just stared at that hoodie for about 5 minutes.
She was jealous. She wants it.
I think she was jealous, yeah. Happiness.
Having read the book about the life of a Buddhist, it would be, don't try and chase happiness. Don't think I'll be happy if I get this, if I get that. And actually try and enjoy your life in the present. Still have your goals to try and achieve, but don't hang your happiness on it and think, if I get that car or if I move to this bigger house, then I'll be happy. Because you'll always be chasing the next thing that will make you happy.
What's the name of the book?
I'll have to come back to you on that. It was like How to Live Like a Monk or something like that.
Okay, obviously it was close to your heart if you remember the title.
Yeah, I mean the content was good. I just can't remember the title.
Okay. Greta and Tate. So it's kind of old news a little bit now because this happened like a week ago. But she was in the news recently tweeting Andy Tate, who's just an absolute scumbag, just basically misogynist.
Flaunts his wealth all over social media, doesn't he? Bugattis and all these different cars, and he's got a shaved head and wears sunglasses and expensive clothes.
Yeah, he's all about the gram, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Andy Tate. Well, he tweeted a week ago, Greta Thunberg, saying about how basically shitting all over the environment by saying, I've got 23 supercars, some of them are 12-litre and spit out loads of carbon dioxide. Basically just like a massive two fingers to Greta Thunberg publicly. Yeah. It's funny because when she did respond, and I'll tell you what her response was, but when she did respond, it kind of seemed almost like a fanboy. in a response video that he did to it, he was kind of acting like he was happy that she even reads his tweets.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it caught virality and got news headlines and all the rest of it. She responded by saying something along the lines of, yes, please send me a full list of your car, garage list or whatever, to I've got a small cock at...
Big Dick Energy or something.
Big Dick Energy or something like that. Yeah. Small Dick, it was Small Dick Energy at something or other.com.
Yeah.
And then he responded with this big stupid video that just people were absolutely roasting Andy Tate in the comments. It was really good to watch because basically the internet saw right through this kind of showmanship of him and it was such a succinct response from Greta. Well, in that video, he actually was handed a pizza. He said, give me some pizza. And someone handed him a pizza box. And from that pizza box, it was rumoured that they were able to locate where he lived in Romania. That was later debunked. And actually, there was just a big, long investigation that's been happening. The day after that tweet, he was arrested by Romanian authorities. And he's been taken into custody. He's not been granted bail. And the reason for that is because the charges against him are rape and human trafficking and conspiracy to human traffic. Some pretty serious allegations. I wanted to get your take on this.
First of all, I often think that people with that much wealth, unless they're like a businessman that's exploited people through legitimate means, in inverted commas, of like having poorly paid workers, if they're that rich, I often look and think, you've got to be a criminal. Like, how can you have like 12 Bugattis, not be a legitimate businessman, and not be a criminal? It just doesn't. The world doesn't work like that. It doesn't surprise me that he's a criminal, but it does surprise me the types of crimes he's been arrested for.
Yes.
I think it's so unnecessary when you reach that stage of wealth. Why would you continue carrying on?
My take is that I just think it's brilliant that has happened. It's like perfect poetic justice.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, he's not been found guilty yet, so, innocent until proven guilty, isn't he?
Yeah.
So let's see.
One thing I really love is when you see those posts on Facebook and it's the police that have put out a post talking about a certain convict or wanted person, and they've got some sort of funny feature about them, a funny facial feature, or basically the public just piles in with the comments. They go viral, millions of views, thousands of comments. I saw one the other day, and it was Lancashire Live.
Oh, I've got a feeling I've seen this.
And it was a guy wearing a Greggs jumper in his mugshot.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. That's quality. That Greggs and Primark collaboration was beautiful.
Oh,
The clothing they've come out with.
For the listeners, it's this sort of rough-looking guy. Police are appealing for the public's help to trace this wanted man with links to Lancashire. I don't know if the links to Lancashire are the fact that he's wearing a Greggs branded jumper, but he's got a jumper on that's just got Greggs brand all over. And if you're not from the UK, Greggs is like a pasty shop in the UK. They sell pastries. It's just like kind of a lower end, kind of like cheap pastry shop.
It's so good though.
But I wanted to just run through some of the comments from that thread because they just made me laugh.
Are they puns? Food puns?
Many of them are.
Let's go.
Pastry related food puns. Crime Stoppers are offering a serious amount of dough for him. I hear he went in all buns glazing. Donut approach him. Goes by the name of Greg. The simple one's the best.
Yeah.
He might get away with it with a slice of luck. He looks like an unsavoury character. Any links to Cornwall? I bet he's baking in that jumper. Someone said, I mean, this is just weird. Just seen him in the pub toilet with his sausage roll hanging out of his pants.
Oh.
Prime example of you are what you eat, because he looks kind of like a pasty. His face is a little bit messed up.
Yeah.
Wanted for crimes against fashion. You know when you've hit rock bottom when your wanted picture features you in a feckin' Greg's top. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that.
Nice.
I thought it was good. Our editor is introducing Goose News.
Goose News.
We will get a jingle eventually.
Yeah. Right then. Gretal the Goose dies of a broken heart after losing mate. Two geese, known locally as Hansel and Gretel in a place called Cleethorpes in Yorkshire in the United Kingdom, were found on the 13th of December trapped in a frozen lake. During the rescue operation, Hansel could not be saved. However, Gretel was rescued and taken care of. But unfortunately, on the 20th of December, Cleethorpes Wildlife Rescue announced that Gretel had died following a short period of time where she'd become increasingly depressed. The charity's announcement read, "Sadly, the loss of her partner was too much for her. Despite everyone's best efforts, we noticed she was getting more and more depressed without him. We always knew this was a possibility with them being such bonded birds. Rest in peace. Fly high. You're back reunited with Hansel now."
Oh,
that's
so
just
he
some
died
really
of a
sad-
broken heart?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Gretel died of a broken heart because Hansel
Trapped. Do you remember how cold it was around the 13th of December? Like, literally everything was so cold. So the pond froze over. I guess the geese were like fast asleep in there or something.
Yeah.
And they both got trapped. One died, and they were clearly so close. Second one died of a broken heart. Actually, it often happens in humans, doesn't it? Where like you got two really old grandparents. When one goes, the other one goes
Within
shortly
6,
afterwards.
12 months. Yeah, it happened with the Queen.
There you go. Yeah, and it happens in geese.
It does. Bloody hell.
So,
all right, on to headliner now. So I do have some pre-prepared. The one that I've had on my board for a little while is "Man wears trash he collected for 30 days."
I like it.
And I found two corkers earlier. Mum urged to rethink baby name, as some say it reminds them of Sesame Street character.
Okay, nice.
And man called Graham calls for more baby Grahams to stop the extinction of Grahams.
Oh, that's a tough selection to choose from, isn't it? I'm intrigued by the Graham story. I mean, it's fairly obvious what it is, but I like the name Graham, actually. I support his cause, although I'm not planning on having any more kids. But if I do have another boy one day, I will call him Graham, if this article's good enough. So, pressure's on the article.
A man called Graham still believes his name is cool and hopes it will make a comeback, even if it has gone extinct. Graham Curie, 34. Ooh, gave his second name.
Is it
doxed himself?
It's not Curry, is it?
It is Curry. There's two R's. 34. He looks a lot older than 34 as well. He's not had an easy paper round as our Graham. Reckons more babies should be called Graham despite parents staying well clear in recent years. The retail assistant said, "I think it's kind of a cool name." You can't declare your own name cool, can you? That makes it instantly not cool. I was noticing a lot of younger people had different names. And it was like Graham seemed to be rarer. I think it's always good to encourage the older names like Graham, Guy, and Greg. 3 Gs.
Up next.
CES 2023 is going on. For those that don't know, CES 2023 is sort of like a tech gaming conference. It's pretty much the biggest one. It's a global one. You get all the big hitters: Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, all the rest of it, turning up. And quite a lot of the tech companies, the hardware tech companies, will go there and announce things. Sony have announced a kind of controller for disabled people.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a circle with like flaps that you can just sort of smash. And I mean, I kind of imagined using it as a non-disabled person. It looked very difficult to use. Kind of looked like a mystery wheel or something.
Well, does this mean that you're going to get a PlayStation now that you've got a controller that you can use?
Only if you buy me a disabled controller. This is due for release, I think, sometime this year. And Xbox do have something that's very similar at the moment. I found it a little bit weird because a couple of things. First of all, being a disabled player with different kit,
Yeah.
surely you're not going to be as competitive in gaming. So I just immediately thought of people getting dicked on in games like Call of Duty
or
and
FIFA
Rust
or
and
something.
FIFA.
Yeah.
So that's not meant to be a harsh criticism. It's just the reality. If you don't have the same kit to work with, the human kit to work with, how are you supposed to compete to the same level that the people that do?
You think they'll introduce a lobby for disabled controller users or something?
I think the more likely scenario is that they'll do what, like the Olympics, they'll have like a disabled Olympics. They just have disabled. But just like the Olympics, there'll be some disabilities that will be more advantageous than others.
Exactly, yeah.
So I just thought it was, and also, how do they know what disabilities people have got? So they've designed a controller that's ergonomically suitable for disabled people.
Yeah, you've lost your legs.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody send you a disabled
just
controller.
give me the normal controller. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I don't know what you thought of it when you saw it.
It just surprises me, actually. For the people that do need that, how has it taken this long to provide something for people that maybe have disability with their hands and arms and fingers and things? Like, have they gone this long without ever playing on a PlayStation or something?
I know, it's like criminal, that, isn't it? It's
shocking.
like child abuse.
It is a little bit. I don't know what games you'd be able to play if you weren't able to control your arms and fingers properly. And so if you're missing out on the whole world of gaming, that's
I've
really
actually
shocking.
thought about this in quite a lot of detail. One of the games I play is Civilization 6, which is a turn-based strategy game.
Yeah.
So it's not like real time. So you can just think through the turns, make logical decisions, and then you do a turn, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So it's at a slow and steady pace, just how I like it.
Yeah.
And that type of game, I thought about if I was disabled, I would still be able to play that game in hospital.
Our little politics section, Rishi Sunak, whilst the whole country's burning around him, he's decided what better thing to announce to the world than the fact that let's get everyone in the country to learn maths until they turn 18.
I know.
Like, that's going to fix
how
everything.
to make a whole country feel even more miserable.
Yeah. How many people drop maths as a subject as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Most people. So to force people to study maths until they turn 18, I mean, only the people that have a maths brain are going to... They would study maths till they're 18 anyway, so
the
what
thing I don't
benefit
get
are you
about
gonna
this
get?
is how is... Right, for the non-UK listeners here, of which there are many,
Yeah.
in the UK, education after 16 years old is optional. So how are you going to enforce specifically
Yeah, good
just
point.
maths after 16 years old
Yeah.
for 2 years? I took maths at A-level, which is 16, 17, 18 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
And the step up in complexity is significant.
I bet.
And you know all those buttons on your calculator that you never thought you'd ever use? Sin, cos, Nas, Daz, Greg and Graham.
Yeah.
All of those buttons you learn how to use. And I've never used them before or since that period of time in my life. And I took it and quit it because after the first year, it was that hard. I used to enjoy maths and then decided, what the fuck is all this shit that I'm trying to learn here? So for him to tell the country as Prime Minister during a cost of living crisis, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Who's going to listen to that announcement and think, right, yeah, so our government have got our things under control now. They know what they're doing.
You make a good point.
And I don't understand what benefit it brings to the country other than people being slightly better at maths than they maybe would have been. If...
They will be better doing something more kind of profound, like starting compulsory education at 3 years old instead of 4. So more structured compulsory education. So that's more like broad sweeping and it's earlier.
Yeah.
More of an intervention at that age.
Yeah.
Because you can then control the educational process or overhaul the curriculum. But just enforcing people to do education in maths only after that age.
Yeah. I don't understand what long-term effect it's going to have if you've got a generation of children growing up who are slightly better at maths than what we were.
Slightly better.
I mean, most people that are being forced to do maths up until they're 18 aren't going to be that much better at maths when they finish at 18 because they'll hate it all the way through and they'll be relieved to finish it and they'll leave with a D or whatever.
So if you live in like Russia, you get like forced compulsory conscription, don't you? In the UK, it's compulsory mathematics. How about that for fighting a war?
What's his thought though? What's his view of a generation of people that are better at maths?
I guess he must think that maths is really important to at that level. The complicated maths is really important to developing technology, to an intelligent society, whatever. But
maybe finances as well.
I think there's other more fundamental things like looking after people when they're ill.
Yeah.
The NHS, for example, that is crumbling around.
And Simon Pegg made a good point in response. His view was basically that this is another stab in the chest for the arts. It's something that's been criticised about the Conservatives for their whole time, like even back in the Thatcher days, is that they just basically hate the arts world, the arts culture.
I did not know that.
They tend to be more left-wing anyway, like artists and musicians and actors. So it's kind of understandable that the Tories would want to like demolish their sort of way of life. But I think also as a result of that, you tend to get some quite good artistic material that's produced, like especially like during the Thatcher era, you get a lot of like protest songs being written and songs about the miners' strikes and things. And actually, it kind of comes around in a circle in a bit where you try and shut down all the musicians and actors, and actually, they're more inspired to produce more work that's more passionate and more meaningful.
Yeah,
so
we're in trouble in the UK. If you ring an ambulance, there's a good chance that it's not going to come to you for a long time.
Yeah.
And even when you get to the hospital, you're probably going to be waiting in corridors or in the waiting room for 24 plus hours.
It's awful.
Now, I think from other countries' perspective, it's always been the NHS is this glory product that's free in the UK. And actually, at the moment, it just feels like it's not fit for purpose.
Oh, yeah. It stopped being fit for purpose a long time ago, I think. I used to, before things got to this stage, I used to think, oh, God, like, and maybe I have broken my leg, I don't know, but I really don't want to spend 12 hours in A&E waiting to be treated when there's, like, people with more urgent things bypassing the queue, rightly so. But why can't they just see you faster than 12 hours? And now, like you say, it can be up to 24 hours.
There have been reports of 36, 42 hours. So, and really old, frail, vulnerable people that have been waiting in corridors.
Yeah, you're not sitting in a nice waiting room drinking free tea and coffee waiting for a nice nurse. You're lying on the floor in a corridor whilst nurses and doctors walk past you.
It's like second and third world
it
type
is.
stuff, really.
It's really, really bad. And they were saying, 500 people extra a week are dying just because of the delays.
It's a lot of extra people, isn't it? 25,000. I think that accounts for something like an extra 5 to 10% of extra deaths in the UK.
And imagine if that happened to someone you knew who had gone to A&E and the reason that they died was because they weren't seen in time.
Purely bad service. Yeah. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. I mean, my feeling is that the NHS is on like a ticking time bomb. It's just going to explode at some point and stop being workable.
How bad can it get until somebody steps in? And what can you do to step in at that point? I mean,
I think they have to, at this point, what probably is more beneficial, this is a big discussion, but probably more beneficial for that to go privatised than to stay public. And I think that that's probably what's been happening here, is that they've been slowly destroying it and dismantling it so that it can be sold off. They always said that it was never off the table, but then the public allowed it to be off the table because there was uproar when they talked about selling the NHS. But it worries me that they've sold off parts of the public infrastructure like the railways to foreign countries that could potentially have control of our health system. That's a worry to me.
It really is. When you think that all of these industries actually could be profit making, and certainly healthcare, like, of course, like, surely it makes sense to have it in your own hands.
It seems like a national security issue, though.
It does, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What we need to do is take back control.
Keir Starmer's New Year's devolution idea is to take back control. I like the way he is using the Tories' slogans against them. Famously in 2016, for the referendum to leave EU, Boris Johnson and his little crew used taking back control as the slogan for the campaign, successfully so.
Yeah, really successfully.
With a small margin of 3.8%.
Well, but also in the election, off the back of that, taking a lot of traditional Labour seats, especially in the north of England, and that sort of slogan where people actually blame the state of the country on things that they don't really know a lot about, and saying we need to take back control of our borders or whatever it is, and actually don't think they really have a thorough understanding of what it is we need to take back control of. But now Keir Starmer's thinking, look at the state of the country, we need to take back control.
It just feels like there's a lot more intelligence going into the campaigns and the PR from Labour now.
Yeah.
It really does. Like, they're doing stuff. I mean, a really great example would be the turmoil over the fracking vote which then became a political vote rather than a policy vote.
Yeah.
And then that ultimately was the end of Boris Johnson, probably the straw that broke the camel's back. That was engineered by Labour. And this is another thing that's being used by Labour as almost like poking the bear a little bit.
I've heard as well a lot of Labour MPs talk about how the Conservatives are constantly trying to set traps, and I can't think of an example off the top of my head. Conservatives are trying to put policies out there which they know Labour will be opposed to, but then if Labour were to oppose them as predicted, the Tories could then say, you see, they're not actually standing up for...
Reverse psychology.
Yeah, and basically Conservatives are setting all of these traps, but actually Labour seem to be so well run PR-wise now that they're actually dodging the issues.
They are a bit of a PR machine, and they also seem to have good people in their ranks. I'm a big fan of Wes Streeting, but Angela Rayner we spoke about. She seems brilliant as well, and a number of others sat on the bench. I'm quite optimistic for the future, but it's just a shame that we've got to wait. It's almost certain at this point that Tories will lose the election, although...
a lot can happen in 2 years.
Yeah.
My fear is if we get a Labour government that they kind of celebrate too much and be like, we finally won after 12 years. And they kind of just enjoy the moment too much and not like...
really knuckle down.
Let's fix the country now. And I don't want them to just be a PR like, fuck you, Tories or something, we've won. Yeah. I just really hope that actually people...
It feels like it can't get a lot worse.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it probably can, but... You'd have to really screw things up to get things even worse than how they are now. Surely the only way is up.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. But yeah, so, I mean, I'm optimistic. I do like Keir Starmer as well. And by the way, I'm a neutral voter. I happily vote Tories when it's right to vote Tories, Green, Lib Dems.
Yeah.
So I've never specifically voted just Labour, but it seems like Labour are the right party to vote for this time.
And just to bring it back to the title, what Keir Starmer saying by take back control is actually, it sounds like he wants to give local communities control over their communities and not have blanket rules and regulations for the whole country.
Essentially taking some of the power away from Westminster.
Yeah.
Famously, the UK politics system yields way too much power in Westminster. And to be fair, that is the most populous area of our country.
Yeah.
However, there's way too much control. If someone in Westminster wants to implement a rule in Scotland, for example, they pretty much can do that.
Yeah. And we had an example here in Manchester where the Manchester mayor, Andy Burnham, he had to fight really hard to take control of the Manchester buses, which were shocking and apparently have improved a lot. And also he's implemented a price cap, I think, of like £2 or £2.50. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking at, I think, is where we've got issues in local communities like Manchester, which can be resolved if we actually just remove Westminster from the equation.
It does make me sad, though, that students of today can't experience what we did when we were students.
The Bullocks bus.
The Bullocks bus. The 2 a.m. Bullocks bus down Oxford Road, back into Fallowfield. Somebody pissing on the floor in the back, a druggie on the floor.
50p as well.
Yeah.
What a bargain that was.
50p for a journey. Now we're showing our age. It remains to be seen what will happen with Starmer and his policies, but essentially what he's saying is they have a mandate and they have a written policy to take some power away, share it out. And I think on some level it makes sense because purely from a numbers point of view, to have people that are not living in the communities controlling the rules and regulations and ultimately the policies and spend in those regions doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it makes sense. And I think we've seen the start of it with the mayors in Manchester and Liverpool. I think they might have been in Newcastle as well or something. So hopefully, if that's a Labour policy, is to devolve power into local communities, it seems like a good thing, I think. Yeah,
we'll see. It'd be interesting to see what slogan the Tories come out with. They're famous at coming out with three words slogans. What was the COVID ones? Stay at home.
Hands, face, space.
Pork scratchings.
I like that. Pork scratchings this week is called the Salmon of Knowledge.
Okay.
And hence my T-shirt.
I see there's a T-shirt there. Green T-shirt with yellow stitched writing.
Yeah, it's a picture of a salmon. And the gold writing around it says the Salmon of Knowledge.
Okay.
You've ever heard of it?
I've never heard of it.
Great.
I'm very impressed that you've gone to the effort of getting a custom-made T-shirt specifically for this podcast.
I've owned this T-shirt for years before the podcast started. If you've been to Belfast and seen the giant ceramic sculpture of a salmon and wondered what it was about, then I'm about to tell you. If you've never been to Belfast and not seen this there is a gigantic sculpture of a salmon in Belfast that's worth checking out. So it actually comes from an Irish folktale, which is called The Boyhood Deeds of Finn. And Finn is one of the most famous people in the whole of Irish mythology, and he is linked to the story of the Salmon of Knowledge. So I'll explain it to you. So in Irish mythology, the first thing that was ever created on Earth was a hazel tree, and within the hazelnuts was all of the knowledge of the universe. And again, according to the mythology, some of the hazelnuts fell off the tree and landed into the waters of the River Boyne, and within this river there was a great massive salmon that ate some of the hazelnuts and therefore obtained all of the wisdom of the world. Right. And this became the Salmon of Knowledge.
Little internets.
Yeah. So this salmon ate the nuts, gained all of the knowledge, and that leads us on to this boy called Finn. He was the son of a famous leader of the Irish warriors called the Fianna. They generally existed, and this guy called Finn did as well. So Finn's dad was killed in battle before Finn was born. So Finn had no father to grow up with, and he was sent to go and live with his scholar, an old wise man who lived by the River Boyne. This scholar was called Finnegas, and he taught him all about the Salmon of Knowledge and the mythology behind it. And one day Finnegas was fishing in the river, caught the salmon, and
it did not have a walnut in its gut.
No.
Oh, God.
So this pulled out
this so good.
massive salmon. It was like shining with like rainbow stripes. He was like, oh my God, this is the Salmon of Knowledge. And he said, Finn, go and fire up the cooking stuff, the fire and all that
the
sort
oven.
of stuff. Yeah. I don't know if they had ovens back then.
The cooking stuff.
I don't know if they had ovens. The pan. We're going to cook this salmon. And
Finn, get the pan.
But when you're cooking it, do not eat it, because the first person that eats the Salmon of Knowledge will gain all of the knowledge of the universe. And it's my salmon, and I found it.
So, I can see where this is going.
So Finn's cooking away, and Finnegas, the old scholar, comes back and sees Finn, and Finn, all of a sudden, his skin's glowing, his eyes are bright white, and Finnegas says to Finn, what the hell have you done? Have you eaten my salmon? And he looks down, and the salmon's still there, in full, nice and cooked. Finn says, no, I was cooking it, and I tested it with my thumb to see if it was fully cooked. And as I did so, I burnt my thumb and quickly put it in my mouth.
Ah, that old chestnut.
Finnegas realised at that point that Finn, by having some of the fat from the salmon and put it into his mouth, actually tasted the first bit of the Salmon of Knowledge, and therefore obtained all the knowledge of the universe. And Finnegas realised that's the case and said, you know what? Finish the whole salmon. It's all yours. And I just want you to go.
Think of me when you're famous.
Yeah, go and live your life, follow your destiny. I've played my part. So Finn went off and went on to become, like his father, the leader of the Fianna warrior tribe. He is also said to have built the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland with that big stone structure. Yeah. And it's also said that whenever he needed to draw upon all of this worldly knowledge at any point throughout his life, all he had to do was put his thumb in his mouth, and he would instantly be reminded of all of the knowledge of the universe that he obtained from eating the Salmon of Knowledge.
That's a cool story.
It's quite cool because it's Irish mythology, but that character Finn was a real warrior that led the Irish army at the time.
And you just like it because it's got
the
same
Salmon of Knowledge
surname. Putin today has announced that he wants to have a ceasefire. So the guy that started the war is now saying, can we stop the war for a little bit? And the reason is because it's the Russian Orthodox Christmas on the 7th of January. And I guess he wants to give the soldiers some morale boost or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Do you think that maybe gets the public on side as well? Because he's probably seen as a bad guy from the Russian public if he's continued to fight.
Propaganda, yeah.
Maybe.
But instantly the Ukrainians have said, no, fuck off.
Right.
So I thought that was like kind of
I wonder when
fair.
the Ukrainians celebrate their Christmas, 25th December, like the rest of us.
Like the rest of the world, yeah,
okay,
probably.
Yeah. And they're like, we've had our Christmas, do one.
But yeah, I just thought it was, I think one of the comments from a senior official in the Ukrainian army was, keep your hypocrisy. Keep your hypocrisy to yourself.
Okay, nice.
Basically saying, like, you started this war, now finish it. But you did make a great point earlier about the fact that the ceasefire would stop Ukrainians firing on the Russians, even though the Ukrainians are the ones that are being attacked.
Yeah.
Which kind of begs the question, doesn't it? Like, I suppose they're taking some territory back.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Ukrainians would take more back.
Yeah. I reckon the Ukrainians should have agreed to it with their fingers crossed behind their backs. Like, yeah, we'll go for a ceasefire. And then as soon as the Russians stop, then the Ukrainians crack on with it.
Get the drones out.
And all of the Russians like, no, we're on ceasefire. We're not fighting anymore for 3 days.
Yeah, I think that alone would be a morale, like, dent to the morale.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Knowing that you might get a day and a half off if you're a soldier.
And then the
like,
Ukrainians take it back off you.
Yeah, fuck that. Social media passports. I saw this. I'll admit, I didn't read into it very much.
Sounds like Black Mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. Australia is looking to bring in some sort of social media passport. And I want to make it really clear right now up front that I didn't read into the detail. But along the lines of, them being able to freeze your accounts, access your accounts, and so on and so forth. And it definitely feels like it's getting a bit too utopian if the Australians...
Dystopian.
Utopian, dystopian. Yeah, utopian's the other one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the perfect world.
Nirvana.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get your take on this, mate. You're normally pretty good on this type of
You know what? There's a massive conspiracy theorist called David Icke who believes that the world elite are reptiles. And
he's not physically massive.
No. He was an ex-footballer, David Icke. So he once said that all of the dystopian laws and practices that the world elite want to put in place are always tested out in Australia first. And actually, you do see Australia leading the way for like authoritarian enforcement of rules and laws and things like that. So it doesn't surprise me that when you put social media passports, that it's actually in Australia. I can't see it happening. I think the public in Australia are actually quite left-wing, a bit liberal, and don't really want that sort of thing. So I think to implement such a thing like that is a bit too far.
It's an interesting test because if the Australians do agree to that somehow, through whether it's through propaganda or whatever, there's a pretty high chance that like the UK is quite a compliant public, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think Americans are relatively compliant as well, although not as compliant as the UK. But all three of those countries are similar, culturally similar. Obviously, the language, historically, fairly similar.
And you can see that Australia could be a testing ground for these sort of laws. If we can get it in Australia, then we can get it in the UK and America eventually.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we're sort of framing it as a negative thing potentially here, but it could also be a good thing. There are a lot of trolls online, and people aren't accountable.
Well, I've always thought actually that I think you should have, if it's not going to be a law that you have to verify your individual name and details with your social media account, you should at least have 2 tiers. So like a blue tick, where it's like this person has verified that they're a real person, and then all the trolls won't have that verification, and you can just discard.
That's a great idea, actually.
But then that does lead towards the Australian social media passport, because if you've got a whole database of people who have verified their identity against their accounts, then the next step in the future could be to then control those accounts and things. So it depends which route you want to go down. If you want to avoid things like social media passports and digital passports that will include your social media, then you don't really want your personal life linked.
It does feel a little bit like they're denting freedom of speech a little bit there, because although having said that, if you want to veil your freedom of speech behind an avatar or not your real person, then is that really you giving freedom of speech or just a voice in an echo chamber? Yeah. So it's an interesting debate. I think we'll probably see that move forward in some capacity in the next 5 years. I had a question for you. Would you rather... It's a very important question, this.
Yeah.
I can't keep it straight. It's a profound question.
Okay.
I've been meaning to ask you for weeks.
I'm ready. I'm in the zone.
Would you rather take an inch off your height and put it on your dick, or take an inch off your dick and put it on your height? What's the answer and why?
It's tough. I think because I've got a lifelong partner...
and a massive cock.
I don't need to impress anyone anymore. I'm done, and we've got our one child, so I would like the extra height. I think I'd take an inch off, add it to my height, and I would probably. I plan on getting back into cricket, so maybe that
by a smaller box.
Extra inch, that extra inch of height may come useful with the bowling.
All right, I thought you were talking about less of a target. Well,
so that's my reason. Go on.
I'm only 5'6.5".
Yeah,
half makes a difference. if you take another inch off me, I'm getting into dwarf territory.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't think I've got a choice. I think it's coming off the D. I think it has to.
Well, how small will it be then, though?
I know. They don't come with a tripod for no reason. I've got an okay size dong. It's not big. It's not small. It's just okay.
Public announcement.
It probably would be small. This would take it into small territory, but you've got to see it first for it to be small, haven't you?
That's true.
If I'm a little bit taller then. Ronaldo?
Yeah, he has really let himself down with his end of his career, hasn't he?
God.
It's embarrassing.
Kind of is, yeah.
Like Messi, I love the way, well, I kind of love it, I kind of hate it. But Messi and Ronaldo had this amazing rivalry all the way through their careers. Messi stayed at one club like pretty much his whole career apart from the last year or two. Ronaldo moved around Europe, proved how great he was at every country he played in. And it's like, oh, who is the best out of these? And the debate went on forever and ever. Comes down to like essentially pretty much their final years as competitive footballers. One World Cup.
Messi wins it. Ronaldo takes a big contract out of in the Middle East, purely all about the money.
Yeah,
it's fuck you money at that point. I mean, he already had fuck you money, didn't he?
Yeah.
Probably like $500 million. This is worth what, 400 million or something?
Yeah. So if people don't know, he signed for a Saudi Arabian club called Al Nassr, and he gets paid 175 million pounds or dollars a year to play for them for 2 years, and then 2 years further as an ambassador for Saudi Arabia, I think, because they're campaigning to host the 2030 World Cup, so he'll be the face of their
I did hear
World
that
Cup campaign.
There is a Newcastle clause in there. Did you read this?
Yeah.
I didn't read it, I just saw the headline.
So if Newcastle qualify for the Champions League this year, Ronaldo can go on loan to Newcastle next year.
Wow.
To take part in their Champions League campaign. I suspect
that would be some twist, wouldn't it, if Ronaldo goes to Newcastle?
I suspect that he's probably got that same clause with a lot of clubs, just to open up his return to the Champions League for many different clubs, because his desire is to play in the Champions League and be the Champions League top all-time goal scorer and stuff. So I reckon, although Newcastle made the headlines, there's probably about 20 or 30 clubs on there that if any of these come in for him, then they can have him on loan.
I mean, a part of me wants to hate him because I do think he's spoiled his career by sort of club jumping in the last 5 or 6 years. He did so well at Juventus, went to United, and the dream was there, wasn't it? But it just never worked out.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I think broadly, the fans did back him for a long time.
I think they did, yeah.
And then I think even when he left, I think still a lot of fans backed him, but he came out looking like the bad guy, I think, after the Piers Morgan interview.
That's true, yeah.
And so then, off the back of that, to then be a bit petulant at the World Cup. Remember, he got subbed.
Yeah.
And then also to take out this huge contract, clearly all about money, for a Saudi Arabian, did you say?
Yeah.
Saudi Arabian club that basically no one's ever heard of, like all of the rest of the clubs in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's no fucking football going on in there.
Yeah.
Right? And for good reason, it's really hot there.
Yeah.
He's just ruined his career.
He really has. It's so sad.
I wonder what the value of that will be long term for him. In the short term, he's going to make a lot of money. I think in the long term, he might struggle.
Oh, definitely. I think it's the end of his career, this now.
Yeah.
Unless he does get this low move back to a Champions League club. But if he doesn't, that's it. He's finished.
He just lost credibility. Although, having said that, I do think to myself, what would I do? It'd be hard to turn down that much money, wouldn't it? Transfer news, Gakpo, Netherlands, just signed for Liverpool.
United were after him for a long time.
For a long, long time, yeah. And a lot of fans were pissed off about this on Reddit. Yeah, they were sort of saying the life cycle of a Man United potential transfer is like 7 years long. And you lose him out to a competitor.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a sad state of affairs, but I mean, I'm excited to see what he can come up with. I don't know if he played in the game that we lost against Brentford 3-1.
Don't think he's come on yet for Liverpool, no.
No, it'd be interesting to see what difference he makes. Liverpool have been found out. Their form is so bad at the moment. We normally play better in the second half of the season, to be fair, but I just think we're too far out now to win the league.
Yeah.
I think best we can hope for is fourth or maybe third.
They just got away for top four, haven't they, really?
Yeah.
And Liverpool's forwards at the minute, when you think about who they've got Firmino, Salah, Jota, Gakpo, Alexander Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabio Carvalho.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Nunes, Luis Diaz. They've got like 8 forward players. they're gonna have to do some selling, aren't they? As well.
I think so. Yeah, I think Firmino will probably end up leaving soon at some
Right.
point. It wouldn't surprise me, although Salah did extend his contract eventually. Would not surprise me if he ended up moving on.
Right.
He's got to start scoring some goals. He's a bit behind on fantasy football this
Yeah.
year. Okay, well that's been podcast number 20. If you're still here at this point,
We are the
appreciate
1% club.
yeah, we are the 1% club.
Welcome.
1 in 100 podcast that makes it to episode number 20.
Yeah.
Well, I've been MachineDaena.
I've been Andrew Salmon, Coronation Street Extra.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Good night.
Take care.